This is a piano, and it's a great instrument. You know, for Western, like Euro music is what I call it, which is derived from the European system of pitches. This is like the dictionary, the encyclopedia, whatever you want to call it. It's a rare instrument that can produce, like this, you know. So that's only 6 at once, but you could play like, well, here's 8 different notes at once. You know, and it's really flexible for doing that, and it's really great. You know, it took a lot of people a long time to come up with the mechanisms and the physics of this instrument to make it work as well as it does. And this isn't like this is a this was a free piano. You know, it's not in perfect tune. But I love it, and I play a lot, you know. You can do lots of things with it. So anyway, the problem with this instrument, like everything has good and bad sides to it. Everything in the world you can think of, you know, nothing is like perfect or completely complete, you know, comprehensive. So the thing about the relationship of the piano and Western music is that it's limited us to think that this is kind of all there is to pitch. These are all the notes, you know. Well, there's notes between here and here. There's the average human being can hear, I think it's 11 or 12 different notes between this one and that one. And so this leaves out a whole lot of kind of pitch thinking that's very important in other musics. That's you couldn't play gamelan music on this because their pitch system is different. Indian music, you couldn't play that on this because their pitch system is different. Middle Eastern maqam music, you couldn't play on this because the pitch systems have things that end up in between these keys. The blues, you know. I kind of think blues sounds not that great on a piano. You know, I like it better on guitars and saxophones where you can bend notes. Instead, on this one, you have to kind of do this stuff, this like, you know, and sort of play two at once to kind of get that feeling. And there's some pretty good blues pianists, but I think it's sort of a fight. You have to fight the piano to really get it to do that. Anyhow, I think it's important for us not to, you know, this is like the known world as of, it was about 300 years ago that Bach sort of codified the well-tempered clavier, using all the keys of this, you know, and that became the system at that point. Great thing. And you know, Bach was a deep thinking guy. He tuned all his own instruments. He, you know, he was in the guts of his machines that he used. And that became the standard. You know, everything that they normally teach you in music school until you get to very high levels will be just about this. And therein lies the problem, is because not all of us hear this way. Not all of us need to do what this enables you to do. The cool thing about this is, and there's a really shortened version of it, is that you can take something and change the root key of it. The root key is like, you know, there's a C, you know. If you wanted to play, you know, in E flat instead, it's the same there. If you did that with a tuning based completely on the overtones, they get wrong after a while. You kind of only get one key in that. And a lot of music from around the world doesn't think about that replaceability of keys. It's Indian music doesn't do that. Makam doesn't do that. Obviously, gamelan doesn't do that, etc. And so that interchangeability really limits what you can fit in between here. This is called an octave. So this note's higher than that one, but they're the same note basically. And so you have this cycle, you know, and this, so you could think of this as a pie, and you divide this pie into 12 slices. Other people divide it into 17 slices or 19 slices, or Harry Parcho's 43 slices. And this limits us to that way of thinking. Gamelan music, they have two ways they divide this. They have one which is 5 and one which is 7, Slendro and Pelog. And they don't all fall, you know, if you divide it by 5, like, they don't all fall in exactly the same places. You know, they're not, it's not all as even and, you know, boxy as you may consider this. And part of what moved me to build instruments was that after playing in this system for a long time, I started to feel, you know, stuck with it. Like, I couldn't really get to things I wanted. I couldn't really, yeah, everything was sort of defaulting back toward this, and that sort of moved me to do things so I could do other things. I'm not I don't have another system. A lot of people have other systems of tuning that they use. There's you know, there's some very pure systems where this is a key ingredient besides this thing, and this piano's kind of out of tune, so this won't really demonstrate that. There's a certain amount of, if you listen to music in just intonation, it's all made to sound very pure in one key, and that music sounds extremely pretty. It's I don't really like it because it's too pretty for me. I kind of like, yeah, I like some mud in the picture, if you know what I mean. My kind of objection to this system, or my kind of bang my head against the wall with this system, is it's not muddy enough. It kind of tends to push towards itself, if you know what I mean. And people have done a lot of cool things, like struggling with this, even pianists, you know, struggling with ways to get the dissonances to work. So you play like, you not only hear the, but you hear these other resonances in there that start giving you some of what you might hear in gamelan or something like that. the approach I wish that we would take toward music theory is like, if you start out in this one's great. I love all kinds of things that happen in here and it can't happen in other music. You can't play God Bless the Child in raga or maqam modes, because it has all this stuff, like here's the bridge of that is, you got a lot of friends, like other systems can't really do what that just did. And so this is really cool. And one thing that sort of bothers me around a lot of experimentalism is the rejection of this because this isn't perfect. And that's kind of dumb. It's like, Newton's physics came up a little short when we got able to see more and understand more things. So we got Einstein instead. That doesn't mean like Newton is useless. It means like Newton's good as far as it goes. And I'm sure it'll eventually happen that we have post-Einstein and somebody go, oh, Einstein missed this, we need more. And we're humans, and so we just keep going, we keep trying out different things and we keep asking questions. And that's very good. I mean, I'm like that my own self, I always want to know what more can be done with something. But then bug when experimentalists go, yeah, fuck equal temperament, man. It's like blah, blah, blah. And yes, I understand what they're feeling, that you feel kind of stuck in this limited universe and it's frustrating and it doesn't really give you what you want. But still, this was really an amazing thing that they did, and this took a lot of people, almost 100 years before, well, at least 50 or so years before Bach. No, maybe it was 150 years before Bach. People were thinking of this system. This system took a long time to evolve. Bach really codified it and popularized it and, has become kind of the template of it. And we should revere this, as a brilliant achievement. But it was also a brilliant achievement of 300 years ago. And, I object more than I object to experimentalists like rejecting this system. I object to academia and people thinking that this contains musical thought, because it does not. It contains a large proportion of it. It's very functional. I see it very much like the Newtonian physics. Like if you're trying to make a car work, or you're trying to, figure out how fast that train is going at some point, or, anything like that, Newton's fine. That's all you need, And so if you're like going to make a pop song or something like that, yeah, the system's great, If you want to do more than that, or find out maybe there's a different kind of pop song, where, for instance, with the physics, if you wanted to know things about larger areas of space, Newton's not really good enough. You need Einstein, like without the theory of relativity, stuff like GPS and cell phones and things just wouldn't work, in a more rigid, deterministic kind of universe like that. So we need this stuff like practically every day. And I think, in a lot of ways, practically every day in our musical life, we need more than this Western system gave us. Doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that it got so far, and it's on us to get it to go farther. And I think we can go farther. I think we'll go farther if we understand at least the idea of what this does and why they chose this. And it's good to study the other folks too. It's good to understand what just intonation is all about, and what Harry Partch's, all these Zen harmonic there's like all these people have done good work. Everybody who contributes to our understanding of this is good. We may not choose to accept any of their conclusions as our conclusions. There's no finality in how we go about arranging sound in time. There's there's no the thing that frustrated me as a young person learning music was that they just slam you with Bach, and it's this major minor key system, and it's ba-boom, it's this black and white keyboard, and everything kind of relates to this. And people who understand this system have probably had to try to explain something to like a guitar player and found how difficult it is. Like if somebody knows the piano, it's very easy to explain the system. If somebody's playing another sort of instrument, a lot of the terminology and the nomenclature and all this kind of is counterintuitive and difficult to explain. And I think that holds a lot of people. I think this repels, especially now, because we're evolving and listening further around the world and like that. This stuff repels some people from learning music. They apologize for their lack of knowledge all the time. They say, well, I'm not really a musician, I don't really know that stuff, and they kind of feel defensive about it. And instead, we should be encouraging to people to listen and make sound, instead of telling them, oh no, you have to know all this and then you're allowed to make sound. This is the passport into music. It's the passport into a certain way of thinking about music, and it's a very good one. But a lot of people just don't hear this way, I play a lot. I like the piano, and I enjoy playing it, and I kind of play it while toast is toasting, or coffee's dripping, or I'm waiting for the bathtub to fill up, or my friend's supposed to come over and isn't here yet. I'll go kill 15 or 20 minutes, having fun on the piano. And I think it's fun, and but I don't revere this as. I don't really aspire to this, It's just another thing, and it sticks us with a worldview of 300 years ago. And you think about 300 years ago, and democracy basically didn't exist 300 years ago. There was tons of slavery. People were property, whether they were, serfs and peons or slaves. The worldview that this comes from is, we've made a lot of improvement in how we think about things, and how we think about one another, and how we think about how we treat the world, and all that kind of stuff. Like, if we want music that speaks to us now, and where we're going now, and where we've gotten to now, maybe we shouldn't try to fit everything into this quite so much. Like if we're only talking in those terms, well, then we only have Newton's physics, and there's no way we're getting to the moon, and there's no way we're getting to Mars, and there's no way we're understanding the cosmic background radiation in the universe, and there's no way we're, just on and on and on. Like if yeah, like people didn't understand DNA then, so they were like automatically kind of racist, because that was the difference they could tell between people. Now with DNA, we know, well, gee, we're like this much different from a chimp. It's not that big a deal. So as far as systems are good. No matter what you're doing, you'll always have a system in place, whether you even know it's a system or not. It's you'll have some kind of idea that you're going with. There is always some sort of form. Again, whether you know it or not, you can get very formal and dictate all these things, and you can get very systematic, and I love Webern, and it's totally rigid and completely austere, and it's all about this system, and it's a thing he figured out how to do with this system. And I think it's beautiful music, and I'm kind of amazed listening to it. However, there's musicians that just kind of get outside of systems and don't really have one, or way less formal systems, like raga music has just as much discipline as Webern does in it. It's just more flexible within itself, and it has more spontaneity in it. It's improvised. But it's improvised with a system. I think any music at all that has coherence to it has some kind of systematic thing going on in it. And so as musicians, we should think about systems instead of system. That's the main thing I'm trying to say about the piano and equal temperament and Western music theory, is that it's one of many systems to approach, and if that's what you want, this is great. And if you want something else, then look around the edges of it and look at what other people are doing, and think about the alternatives of it too. It doesn't mean that you have to completely embrace some other particular one, and they don't compete with each other. They add to one another. And I think it's sort of one of the reasons that I have bees in my bonnet about this is that I've been listening to music from around the world kind of my whole life. I've always liked, other stuff, Like even when I was a little kid, I saw Ravi Shankar when I was 13 or 14, and it just blew my mind. It's my favorite show I ever went to, and all that kind of stuff. And I'd go home to the piano, and it isn't there. I could find little bits of it that were there, but all this bendiness and, just not there, and so to me, Ravi Shankar was better than Beethoven and better than Bach, and just a whole lot of stuff in it that just wasn't addressed by this. And but over time, it seems to me that, and this is mostly true, this is sort of popular music that you hear and stuff like that. But as time has gone on, going through the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and into now music from all over the world is starting to sound like this thing, because these are manufactured, they're standard, and that's true of the keyboards too. You can torque the keyboards around this way or that way and make them have different tunings. There's some that have like huge ranges of choices, But basically they come out of the box like this, and they're going to play music with this predisposition in mind. And a lot of Middle Eastern music you hear now sounds like this. And I think that's a shame. I think they're losing a lot of the beauty of Maqam. That, just has so much inflection in between these notes. Same with Indian music, same with, Far Eastern music. Japanese tunings were really interesting. But now they're kind of starting to default to this, and this is a sort of colonialism or imperialism or whatever you want to call it, that's taking away a great deal of the range of expression that music can have and putting it into this system. And when I play this, I play it going for what I want to play for it, and I compromise, to get what I want out of this. And that would be true of any instrument. If I play something I built, I'm still I'm still compromising something. You just always are. You're figuring out, when you're in the moment of making music, you're just trying to make something sound good, or however that means to you, So it's not a knock on, if you have one of these, play it, man. It's a great thing. You can, it has this huge range. You can play 10 different notes at once, or even more. You can just do all this stuff with it. So, it's not, don't do that. It's but when you do that, this is not the end all and be all. This is not, you won't settle this, in other words. It's not, nothing is finished, and especially music wasn't finished 300 years ago, and it's not going to be finished 300 years from now or 300 years after that. It's, we need to stay involved and stay dynamic with it. And part of the reason I do what I do is that this system traveling all over the world, almost everybody plays Western instruments now because they're efficient and they've learned how to amplify them, and everybody's used to how they sound, and like that, it's become a struggle for musicians to push through that. And the response has been sort of to mechanize and reprocess and do all this stuff that's not actually about playing the instruments, to try to make the sound come alive to us, because I think that's what we really want, is we want to feel a livingness of sound. So I kind of would like to see more and more of us push back against that, not in a negative way. I don't feel like anything I do is intended to invalidate anything that exists in this system in which I grew up. I'm not having an argument with this. We're having a discussion, many elements from this system will always be in anything I play. There's a lot of very strong basis within this system that, that exists in all the other ones too. Everybody has octaves, everybody has fifths, and fourths, of course. But then once you get into these thirds and seconds, then the physics of this system breaks down a little bit. These are very much compromised intervals. And there's those 11 or 12 different ones within them. It would make about 20 if you included the ones that were below there. There's a whole lot of musical thought that can just go into thirds, And this doesn't let you think about any of that, So, I think it would be cool if we all made more stuff and pushed back and got more discussion or more personality into those things. When you can't choose that's limiting your ability to express yourself, you know. It would be hard for me to describe how I hear this as wrong, but that's close to what I want, but it's not really what I want. Same with this one. It's very close to what I want, but it's not, you know, to me there's this whole area in between these that can relate to this. And these are all the choices that we have. And they're okay and they're fine and I'll use them if I'm playing this. But if we want music to grow and go forward, and you know, I think a lot of us do. I think a lot of us want to feel like we're exploring in music, not that we're just carrying out sets of instructions or whatever. It's very human to, you know, wherever we get to, we want to go somewhere else. It's, you know, it's true in all of our disciplines. You know, Einstein didn't just say, oh, well, Newton solved all that, so let's not think about it anymore. Nobody does that. You know, everybody who lived by the ocean in old times always got on a boat and went somewhere. You know, what's over there? You know, or people on land. What's on the other side of this mountain? You know, we're curious. That's what drives our species, is our curiosity. And so being musically curious, one of the things we ought to be curious about is, you know, what is beyond this? What more can we do than this? Doesn't mean this is wrong, doesn't mean anything like that. It just means that, yeah, this is really cool. That's so cool that they, you know, 300 years ago they came up with this. This is brilliant, you know. But it's 300 years later, what are we adding to this, and what are we contributing, and where are we taking it? And I think some of that is through, you know, you can alter and detune these, and you can do a lot, but in this sense, even if you detune this piano, you still have this 12-ness, you know, of the pitches between here and here. And so you're still kind of, you know, you're still getting pulled back to that mindset. And so yeah, as we go forward, like, we should be looking for other things, and we should set ourselves up to have ways of looking for other things. This doesn't let us question. This doesn't let us question that. We're stuck with that. You know, there's a lot of stuff you can do with that. But, you know, but still you don't get to think about, I want this a little different, I want that a little different, I want this a little different. Like, that's not really what I hear. And I do think that keeps people from getting involved in music sometimes. I think they're sort of disappointed. You know, I'm going to play music and you know, your class is like, my friend had that as his first ever piano exercise that he had to learn. You know, and it's like, and he said, shit man, I wanted to like play like Led Zeppelin, and I'm going. So the approach, you know, the approach could come from elsewhere, and the more it comes from elsewhere, I think the better. I think the more kind of clamor in the sound world, the more interesting random things will happen, and somebody will hear this from over there, and this from over there, and this from over there, and say, yeah, that's cool, I'll go forward with that. And it might have nothing to do with this. Anyway, kind of just saying, you know,